This question from the May 2023 SAT is challenging if you don't know your powers of base 2, but it's rather simple if you do know your powers of base 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to re-express these values as 2 raised to a power. So 32 is 2 to the 5th. And then our rule is that if we take the square root, that's the same as raising this to the 1/2. So that would look like this. Power to a power, you can write this as multiplying those out, which would be 2 to the 5/2. And then for the 5th root of 64, 64 is 2 to the 6th power. And then same process there, it'd be raised to the 1/5. So this is the same as 2 to the 6/5. So then we have 2 to the 5/2 times 2 to the 6/5. And then we're looking at our answer choices and we're trying to compare it. So what we could do is right here, when we're talking about a 5th root, what that really means is if we have 5 of something, we can factor it out, and we have even more than 5 to use. This is 2 to the 5th power times 2. So we can factor out a 2 because we have 5 of them. So that's going to leave us with 2 times 2 to the 1/5. And you're going to have a similar situation with your square root of 32. So you can pull out any perfect squares. So there is a perfect square here because this really is the same as square root of 16 times square root of 2. And square root of 16 is a perfect square. So that's going to be 4 times 2 to the 1/2. Then notice that in your answer choices, you have an 8. Where does that come from? It comes from multiplying our plain old numbers here. We got 4 times 2 is 8, pulled out front. And then we're just left with a situation where we have to create a common denominator to combine our 2 to the 1/2 and our 2 to the 1/5. That's going to get us to our answer because this gives us 2 to the 5/10 times 2 to the 2/10, which gives us 8 times 2 to the 7/10. A fractional exponent can be rewritten just exactly as this answer choice has here. You can see it's the same numbers, so that's our answer right there. D, 8 times the 10th root of 2 to the 7th. Next, I'll show you a slightly different way to think about it that does click for some students. So if this is the 5th root of 2 to the 6th, then that means that if we have 5 2's, 2 times itself 5 times, that means that we can pull that 2 out front because essentially it's taking the 5th root of 2 to the 5th, and then these simplify to 1. So we do have 5 2's under our 5th root. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can pull a 2 out front here, and then we're left with times the 5th root of 2 because we have that one remaining 2 under the 5th root symbol. So we've dealt with this whole part, but now we need to deal with this part here, which was, that was the square root of 32. So you can either think of it as the square root of 2 to the 5th, or you could think of it in the same way that we've been doing at this part of the video. So you look here and you say, if I have 2 times 2, that means I could pull a 2 out front because that's basically like the square root of 4. I have 2 times 2 again, meaning I could pull a 2 out front. Then I'm left with times the square root of 2. So this can also be written as 4 times the square root of 2. Remember, we're putting all of this together. We're trying to put all of this together. And I will just recreate that for this part as well. So that is 4 times 2 to the 1/2 times 2 times 2 to the 1/5. Now we're back where we were in the last way that we approached this problem. So now you're just going to be multiplying terms the same base, adding the exponents. So you can just multiply the 4 times the 2 to give you 8. And then it's going to be times 2 to the 5/10 times 2 to the 2/10. This becomes 8 times 2 to the 7/10. And then we just compare to our answer choices. Those are our choices basically, because we eliminated the options with the 6 out front because there is no 6 out front. And it turns out that it is answer D. So there are multiple ways to approach that question. As you can see, process elimination can get you pretty far as well. If you'd like to see more questions like that, let me know in the comments below. I'd be happy to make some more questions like this. I do predict that this topic will show up on the upcoming SATs and ACTs because this topic has been showing up frequently on past tests recently.